Good afternoon and welcome to Winchester News Online. I'm Molly Keane. Coming up, a Winol exclusive interview with Winchester MP Danny Chambers. Tuition fees are set to rise for the first time in 8 years.
Raising it isn't going to benefit the students at all. It's only going to mean that we're paying more back that we're not prepared for.
And there's a race against an unexpected opponent. It's been a busy week in the world of politics, with the US election, tuition fees and the Conservative leadership race all still to come. But first, the UK general election earlier this year brought an end to years of Tory dominance here in Winchester. Many people voted for change here. Liberal Democrat Danny Chambers won the seat from the Conservatives with a 12% swing. I invited our new MP to the Winol studios to see why he thinks the vote fell in his favour. The vet turned politician. Meet Danny Chambers, Winchester's first non-Conservative MP in over a decade. The election back in July was a two-horse race here in Winchester, but Chambers came out on top, securing a majority of just under 14,000 with a 52.5% share of the vote. But why does he think the Lib Dems had the upper hand this time?
I think there's two or three different reasons, and it was almost a perfect storm that came together at the same time. So the people who voted Conservative between sort of 2010 and 2019 maybe didn't like Boris Johnson breaking rules, lying to Parliament, lying to the Queen, proroguing Parliament unlawfully, breaking international law, because they're Conservatives because they believe in our institutions, they believe in the rule of law, they believe in the sort of competence. And the Liberal Democrats came in saying, well, we care about standards in public life. Like, I'm a vet. If I broke the rules and I lied about it, I'd get struck off. And yet nothing happened to these people, And I think that was one reason people came to us. And then I think as well, in Winchester specifically, just seeing how much Liberal Democrats cared. We had thousands of us knocking on doors, speaking to people, asking what their concerns were. We spoke to 24,000 people last year. We spoke to about 25,000 people this year. We really know how people feel about things. And people, I think, were just fed up with Conservative MPs just taking them for granted.
Chambers has been selected as the Liberal Democrats' spokesperson for mental health. With the Labour government's plans to allocate an extra £25.7 billion to the NHS, Chambers had some different thoughts about how the money could have been spent.
We were pleased that the government put money into the NHS. It needs reform, but it also does need some more funding. But what we were disappointed about was that you can't fix the NHS without fixing social care. And the NHS, the Liberal Democrats have been calling for a cross-party plan on social care for years now. Social care affects the entire NHS. And so what we say is that you need to invest heavily in primary care, which includes mental health. So when you've got people in A&E because they can't get a GP appointment, because they can't get the mental health care they need, because they can't get the dental care they need, it is more cost effective to make sure you can keep people healthy in their communities. There's so many non-clinical, non-medical factors that affect mental health. So we know people in the poorest 20% of society are more than twice as likely to have mental health issues than someone on an average salary. We know that people in debt are going to struggle more with mental health issues.
Since becoming an MP 5 months ago, Chambers has signed 18 early day motions and has met with several community groups in order to push forward Winchester's concerns and issues in Parliament, particularly involving the environment and mental health. Molly Keane, Winchester News Online. After more than 3 months of campaigning, Kemi Badenoch has beaten Robert Jenrick to win the Conservative Party leadership contest. Our political editor, Rhys Huggett, takes us through how two became one.
The Conservative leadership contest is over and the winner is Kemi Badenoch, as most people expected. Badenoch won about 12,500 votes over Robert Jenrick. She won almost 54,000 votes while he won over 41,000 votes, making it the closest Tory leadership contest in recent times. The Essex MP becomes the 6th leader in as little as 9 years and takes over a very fractured party. She said she would offer jobs to everyone who launched a leadership bid, although James Cleverly has already ruled himself out. The outgoing leader, Rishi Sunak, has congratulated her on social media by saying, "I know that she will be a superb leader of our great party." The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has also congratulated her, saying, "The first black leader of a Westminster party is a proud moment for our country." She has made a name for herself by being a firebrand, saying some controversial things, but we will see if Kemi the campaigner is different to Kemi the leader as she takes part in her first PMQs tomorrow.
The Conservatives were the last to increase tuition fees for university students, but that was in 2017. And now, the new Labour government has announced plans to increase fees again. Emily Byway finds out how students are responding to the news.
4 years after Sir Keir Starmer said tuition fees would be abolished under his government, an increase has just been signed off. For the first time in 8 years, student tuition fees are set to rise to £9,535 next year, this being an increase of £285. Along with this sees an increase of maintenance loans by 3.1%, allowing up to £414 extra per year. Both of these are linked to the rate of inflation, and I spoke to university students at Winchester to ask their thoughts on the increase.
No, it's not too good, is it? I think there comes a tipping point where there's going to be people turning down university just because of the money.
I think that they were already quite high as it is, so going up even more is quite expensive, and I was under the assumption that they were going to be abolished and decreased, so the fact they're going up even more is quite intense.
So raising it isn't going to benefit the students at all. It's only going to mean that we're paying more back that we're not prepared for.
This comes after years of universities have been calling for these increases. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has told universities to do more to help their disadvantaged students. And following Labour's announcement, Laura Trott, Conservative Shadow Education Secretary, said students will suffer where they can least afford it. The National Union for Students has also expressed its concern, saying undergraduates are footing the bill for underfunded universities.
Today is election day. More than 80 million have already cast their ballot in the early voting period in America. In the last few weeks, our political reporter, Maeve Corbett, has been guiding us through the election. She's here now with me with a breakdown of the latest developments. So Maeve, what is the situation looking like?
Well, the BBC's just reported some breaking news in the last 40 minutes. Donald Trump's campaign has claimed that Republican election workers were blocked from the process and kicked out of a polling station in Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Now, while the report claims that 3 of the 4 workers have been reinstated, the district attorney will be holding a press conference at 3:30 our time, so about 20 minutes. As for the polls across the nation, everything's pretty much neck and neck. It's going to really hinge on those swing states such as Pennsylvania and Michigan. The final weekend ABC and Ipsos poll suggests a slight lean towards Kamala Harris, but the polls can't always be accurate with about 3% margin of error. And the polls also suggest that people aren't happy with their choices. But yesterday we saw the final campaign speeches, the rallies and the media appearances. Trump took to his final rally in Michigan and he criticised Harris and he said he would lead America to, quote, new heights of glory. Harris held hers in Pennsylvania and she focused on the optimism of her campaign and she expressed pride in young voters.
So Pennsylvania and Michigan, you would say that these really are quite significant states in this election.
Yeah, they're swing states, so they're already important, but Pennsylvania is one of the most important this year. They're really tied in the latest polls and they have 19 electoral college votes, which means they've got a lot of influence nationwide. Michigan has 15 college votes, which isn't as many, but it can still really swing the vote either way. They've also seen quite a few Muslim and Arab voters leaning towards the Green Party with Jill Stein instead of Harris due to different stances on the war in Gaza. But both of them can come down to just a few thousand votes, so it's going to be really, really tight.
Well, thank you so much, Maeve. Now you can keep up to date with our US election coverage on our Winol website. Winchester Prison has been severely criticised in a new report. It said drugs and violence had led to a significant increase in serious assaults against staff. The report added that the appalling conditions posed risks to safety and security. Prison officers and watchdogs are now calling for urgent change. Jade Edwards-Lowe reports.
How would you feel knowing that there's an increasing level of violence and insufficient security at your place of work? Well, that's the harsh reality faced by prison officers at HMP Winchester, with an independent watchdog claiming that 41% of around 690 men held there tested positive for drug use in August. These aren't the only issues at HMP Winchester. The Prison Officers Union are growing increasingly concerned about prison conditions.
It's an old Victorian prison. You know, at one time we were having problems on one of the wings with prisoners being able to actually dig through the wall into the adjoining cell next door. We have a lot more inexperienced staff now than what we used to. We've lost a lot of experience. That in turn leads to less experienced management as well.
Back in February 2020, Craig Steedman, aged 32, took his own life while at HMP Winchester. An inquest into his death concluded on the 1st of August 2024. Some key parts of the coroner's report surrounding his death includes:
it is not possible for learning to be fully disseminated and catered upon if there is no process for sharing the findings of their organisations tasked with investigating deaths in custody and discussing these with relevant prison/healthcare staff. In my opinion, action should be taken to prevent further deaths, and I believe you and/or your organisation have the power to take such action.
With these urgent conditions now in the spotlight, legal advocates, families and prison officers are growing increasingly frustrated.
Whether this will bring lasting change remains to be seen, but for now the situation here at Winchester Prison serves as a stark reminder of the challenges facing the UK's legal system. Jade Edwards-Lowe, Winchester News Online.
Bus passengers are facing an increase of almost £500 a year, thanks to plans just announced by the government. It means that a single fare will rise from £2 to £3 from the beginning of next year. Our travel correspondent, Kieran Tibbett, tells us more.
With the nights drawing in earlier, how much would you be willing to pay to catch the bus home after a busy day? Last week, Labour's budget increased the single bus fare cap from £2 to £3, which will last until the end of next year.
The £2 cap was introduced by the Conservatives to help combat the cost of living crisis, and it was set to expire at the end of December.
In a statement, Hampshire County Council said,
"We welcome the government's proposal to retain the bus fare cap, albeit with an increase to £3. The current £2 bus fare cap has been particularly successful in Hampshire. It offers significant savings in a rural county like ours, where bus journeys tend to be longer and therefore likely to be more expensive than in large towns and cities, where journeys are typically shorter."
Bus operator Stagecoach, who serve much of Hampshire and run services across Winchester, also acknowledged the announcement and welcomed the clarity it provided. Stagecoach said their goal remains to provide reliable and affordable transport options that benefit their communities. People were sure to make their feelings known about the extra cost to catch the bus.
I don't think it's a good idea, especially with the amount of students in the city.
I think it's really annoying, as I'm someone who uses the bus quite a lot, and where I live it's really difficult to get a bus in the first place.
I think it's a bit ridiculous personally. It's a little bit too high.
In a city with such a diverse bus network, the increase in bus fare will have users choosing whether to pay that little bit extra on the bus or whether to move to other modes of transport through the winter months. Kieran Tibbett, Winchester News Online.
Now, after less than a month, a petition campaigning for driving restrictions for young people has gained over 18,000 signatures. The petition follows the AA's call for a new graduation licence, which would stop under 21s from carrying passengers. Jodie Kelly has the details.
In our teens, most of us wanted to learn to drive for the freedom of being able to go anywhere with our friends. But a proposed new law may just change the way that young people drive. Insurance company AA has argued that new drivers under the age of 21 should not carry passengers a similar age or younger in the first 6 months of their licence. The proposed changes come after Break, a road safety charity, reported that the leading cause of death in those between 15 and 29 is in traffic accidents. This idea is already in law for many countries, like the US, Canada, Australia, Sweden and Northern Ireland.
Well, for some time now at the AA, we've been looking at the figures for young driver deaths, and it seemed almost every other weekend there would be a case, 4 teenagers in a car, 3 teenagers in a car. Each year, something like 1,500 young drivers were killed or seriously injured in crashes. With passengers in the car, you're 4 times more likely to crash. So you get a new driver, they may be a bit nervous, but then their friends get in the car. It might encourage them to show off. It might distract them if there's shouting in the back.
The BBC has estimated that if these changes are brought into law, then 934 serious injuries could be avoided each year and 54 deaths. However, young people are still sceptical.
They should be looking at maybe an age cap.
I think that younger drivers and old drivers have problems.
As of the moment, the government have said they are not considering these changes, however will be considering other methods to tackle the problem and protect young drivers. Jodie Kelly, Winchester News.
Now, it was man versus machine in a special race on the Isle of Wight. Runners didn't compete against each other, but instead against a steam train. Watching to see who came out on top was our reporter, Jacob Rayner.
Although the need for steam railway is slowing down, these keen runners are speeding up to beat the train to the finish line in what was the 4th annual Beat the Train race here on the Isle of Wight. The idea is for the runners to complete the 5-kilometre run within the half hour it takes for the train to arrive at the finish line. The winner of the race wasn't aware of the event until recently.
My dad's really into train spotting, and with him following the island Deccan and stuff, he's lived on the island before, doesn't anymore. But no, I'm back on the island living here now. He just thought he'd share it, and I said, I'll happily do it, but as long as you come down and do it as well. So yeah, just waiting for him and my brother to finish now, so hopefully not too far behind, but something different at the end, they're not necessarily racing people, racing the train, so it's all good.
He wasn't the only one who beat the train, with over 200 of the 300 people attending managing to achieve the feat.
Yeah, good race. Drier than I thought it was going to be. Thought it was going to be a bit muddy, but it was good. Really good day. Thank you.
Actually, my timing this year was better than last year, but for my age, I can't complain. You know, if I manage to beat the train, that's a bonus.
Friends and family had the opportunity to watch on from the train as the runners kept their pace. The staff were saying this was the best it's been in years.
Yeah, it's gone well. The rain's held off, so that's always a good start. There's been a good number of people here, nice atmosphere, so yeah, really pleased.
It's been a successful day here, with staff, families and eager runners all having something to smile about. Although the steam railway isn't quite as successful as it once was, days like these continue to bring people together. Jacob Rayner, Winol News Online.
Every year, the local parish of Oliver's Battery holds seasonal events to bring together the community. A fan favourite has been taking place over the past week. Morgan Mitchener-Banks went to see why this event is such a hit with the locals.
For many, the end of October signals Halloween, but for the people of Oliver's Battery, it means much more.
If you've been wandering around a small community, you may have noticed some unfamiliar faces like these popping up. And that's because it's the Oliver's Battery annual Scarecrow competition.
Yeah, we started this Scarecrow competition, I think this is the 4th year that we've been doing it now, and we started it because we, as an events group, we try and find ways to creatively gather people from the community, so to strengthen those community bonds. And this has been a real hit with the people of Oliver's Battery, and it's just got bigger and bigger every year.
The competition ran through the school half term, from the 25th of October to the 3rd of November. This year has seen more entrants than last year, with 26 creations being submitted and displayed during the week. And as always, there were a range of scarecrows on display, from some classic characters to some more comedic creations. The people of Oliver's Battery seem keen to get involved every year, but not all for the same reasons.
Why do I enjoy doing this? It's just a bit of childish fun, and actually people in the community really get behind it.
It represents the WI national campaign about dental health matters, trying to campaign for more dentists, more NHS work from the dentists.
I still had the stuff left over, so it lives in the garage, and I try and think of something I can do with it each year.
The winners of the competition are yet to be announced, but it won't be long until we find out which scarecrows stand tall above the rest. Morgan Mitchener-Banks, Winchester News Online.
Now with all your local sport, here's Lenny Teague.
History was made on Sunday when Winchester City Flyers played their first ever game in the Women's FA Cup first round proper. Their opponents were AFC Portchester, and Elliot McVie was there to bring us the highlights.
The Flyers lived up to their name in this one, getting off to a flying start after Brooke Marshall's attempted clearance was smashed home by Libby Wilkinson. The Portchester supporters were silenced by the early goal, but it wouldn't be long before their side found a leveller. With just 8 minutes on the clock, a corner from Ailey Curry was met by the head of Sam Jennings, whose effort just couldn't quite be stopped by the Winchester defence. The hosts almost retook the lead after a quarter of an hour, when Emily McDonough's pinpoint cross was volleyed just wide by Kaylee Tonks. But just a minute later it was the visitors who got their second goal. Gemma Hillier found space on the edge of the box, and her shot was simply too powerful for goalkeeper Ellie Parker. At 2-1 down, the Winchester management knew they'd have it all to do if they wanted to stay in this year's FA Cup, and on 30 minutes they were given a helping hand by the linesman's flag, denying Portchester a third goal. But the visitors would find that all-important third just shy of the hour mark, when Hillier broke free of the Flyers' defence and pokes it round the goalkeeper to give herself a simple finish. Winchester weren't quite done yet though, this half volley from Wilkinson keeping the South Coast side on their toes. But with 20 minutes left to play, a Winchester clearance fell straight to the feet of Curry, whose lovely dummy and strong finish put the result beyond any doubt. Winchester's Women's FA Cup run was over, missing out on a home tie against Bournemouth in the next round.
I think at the half-time break we weren't particularly happy with some things that we were doing. We just needed to make slight little changes here and there. But, you know, I can't knock any of the players there. They put a shift right until the end. We were still going, even at 3-1 down, then 4-1 down. We were still really pushing.
So not the result the Flyers were hoping for today. They'll have to wait till next season to try it all over again. Elliot McVie, Winchester News Online.
Local side Colden Common were in Hampshire Trophy action last Saturday. Sitting pretty in second place in the Hampshire Premier League, they came up against a Denmead side struggling in 12th. Our reporter Guy Nicklinson was there to see how the match unfolded.
It was a fast start to the match from Denmead, and this push in the back led to early penalty shouts, but they were ignored by the referee. Denmead were dominating the early stages, getting themselves into advanced areas. This beautiful delivery was powerfully turned in by Leslie Matare. He wheeled away in celebration as the away side opened the scoring 27 minutes in. 12 minutes later they were in again, as this curved pass was toe-poked in. Leslie Matare had his second of the afternoon, and it was beginning to look a long way back for Colden Common. Aggression levels were high in the second half, as the home side attempted to wrestle their way back into the game. And Matare was clattered by the outrushing goalkeeper, which saw a yellow card issued. The hard running nearly paid dividends for Matare, as he picked the pockets of Ollie Riddle, but his lobbed effort wouldn't come down quickly enough. 1v1 out wide, this brilliant cross to the back post was met by Sam Middleton's diving header. 70 minutes on the clock. Was the comeback on for the hosts? Only 2 minutes later, this long pass led to some slipping and scrapping, but Teo Adekoya managed to poke the ball into the path of Ryan Choate, who took some positive touches then fired low under the goalkeeper. Colden Common were level, but could they go on to score the winner? 83 minutes on the clock. Matty Driver picked up the ball and drove at the Denmead defence, swarmed by 3 opponents, but determined to make it through. He was in, and he grabbed a sensational solo goal. The comeback was complete. It must have been some half-time team talk from manager Steve King.
It was a tale of two halves, wasn't it? Like, they controlled the first half. Second half, I thought we were unbelievable. And the 3 goals, especially, like, we've got a new 16-year-old striker that scored the second goal. He's come in and he's putting his body about massively. But for Matty to score the winner, dribbling through 4 or 5 players and slotting it into the side, couldn't be prouder of the team today.
Steve did it in the middle of the pitch. Had a few strikers making runs either side, which kind of opened it up nicely. Took it round a few players, kind of all opened up, and then just slotted it through the keeper's legs. Really happy with that.
So very much a game of two halves here, as Colden Common rally from 2-0 down to win 3-2 and book their place in the next round of the Cup. Guy Nicklinson, Winchester News Online.
And now, a roundup of the weekend's local football with Rebecca Perez-Taylor.
Southampton managed to get the first Premier League win of the season at the weekend, as a late goal from Adam Armstrong saw them edge past Everton. The Saints, however, remain in the bottom three. Portsmouth, with just one win so far this season, draw 1-1 away at mid-table Hull City, leaving them still at the bottom of the table. Considering an own goal didn't help Aldershot Town at the weekend, as they're now out of the FA Cup following a 3-1 defeat against Bradford City. It rained goals at Farnborough with 7 in total, 3 for Farnborough, but 4 for the visiting team, Dorking Wanderers. Despite the loss, Farnborough remains in the top 4 of the National League South. And an early goal from Ollie Griggs in the 14th minute got Winchester City off to a flyer against Hannibal Town. But a last-minute equaliser resulted in the citizens having to settle for only 1 point.
And that's all the sport we've got for you today. Back to you, Molly.
Thanks, Lenny. Finally, ink from the page to the skin. Ruby Harper is a young entrepreneur who has been running her own tattoo studio from a young age. Izzy Paul went to see her at work.
Right, are you ready? Yes. Amazing.
The Skin is her canvas. Pins and Needles is a local tattoo shop in Winchester, run by Ruby Harper. But how did she start tattooing?
And from such a young age, I've always been drawing, non-stop drawing. Even like all over my arms. Instead of like paying attention in school, I'd be drawing all over my arms. So it was my mum who mentioned it, and she said, oh, I think you should tattoo. But obviously at the age of 11, you're thinking, I'm not really caring about that. Like, it's not something that I'm really bothered about. But it really stuck with me, and it always stuck with me like growing up. And yeah, I just thought, like, as soon as she said that, I was like, that's what I'm destined to do, like, that's what I've got to do.
For a long time, tattoos were seen as an act of rebellion rather than an art form. And with this overhanging idea of tattoos and this stereotype looming, can these drawings actually have meanings?
And there's like certain tattoos that you can have done that do have meanings behind them, like butterflies. They're supposed to represent like change and like a new version of yourself, or like the Medusa one is supposed to be like a representation of like some sort of sexual assault or sexual trauma you've been through.
She believes tattoos have lots of meanings. What do other people believe?
Yes, I think, well, most of my tattoos have meanings, but some don't. I have a tattoo of a cowgirl because I like cowgirls, so.
I'm not a big fan of tattoos. I think they look a bit scruffy.
I disagree with you there. 10 seconds. I think tattoos are like, well, it depends on the individual. I'd say they're a good way to express yourself.
Izzy Paul, Winchester News Online.
That's it from Winol for this week. Goodbye.
Cue titles.